Welcome back to the series. Today we are going to be talking about raised beds, which when set up well can be much lower maintenance than a container garden with less watering and less fertilizing. So regardless of whether you are just starting out and only have one raised bed or you have multiples and just happen to have an empty one, I'm going to be sharing what I'm planting into that raised bed and also tips for how to lay it out to maximize your space. Now let's talk raised beds. There are all kinds, from mounted rows to wood to metal to recycled PVC water drains. You name it, I've grown in it. And there are pros and cons to all of them. If you want to take a deeper dive into all the different kinds of beds and what might be better for you, I'll have a link down in the show notes. As for me, I grow in these beds here by Hopkins Hidden Homestead. They are the perfect blend of durability, functionality, and beauty. If you want to grab one, I'll have a link down in the show notes with a discount code. I garden year-round here in Florida and kind of go with a rolling garden plan, meaning as one crop is on its way out, I have another one to immediately take its place. Like a theater production where the cast changes with the seasons, but instead of having a long intermission, I'm always ready with the next act. It's great for maintaining soil health and biology, but it can be a little tricky for beginner gardeners to master. That's typically always my goal in raised beds, to have some sort of roots in the ground. So it's fairly rare for me to have an entire bed empty at one time. But we have lucked out. These tomatoes have done their final scene after harvesting boatloads of tomatoes. It is now time to bring in the next act of warm season spring crops. So, what do we plant and where? Let's dig in. It's spring right now, so I'll be planting warm weather crops. If you happen to be watching at another time of year, take the layout concepts I'm about to share and apply it to the season crops you're working with. Not sure what to plant when? I've got a free cheat sheet that breaks up Florida into North, Central, and South by crop and month. I'll have a link for it down in the show notes. So some general garden layout tips. Find the north side of your bed. I am sitting on the northern ledge of this raised bed. And on that north side, I want you to plant any sort of vines or crawling things that need a trellis or your tallest crops. By planting them towards the north side of the bed, you make sure that it doesn't shade out anything that's on the other side of it. From there, I'm planting the next tallest crops in front of the trellis, so on and so forth until I get to the shortest crops towards the front. Another tip or trick that I would advise is tucking in a vining crawler or sprawler, like for instance a watermelon, at the corner of the bed and allow it to climb out of the bed and into the yard. By doing this, you're still getting the plant the high quality soil that it needs, but you're not taking up all of that valuable bed space. So to the back of the bed, the north side of the bed, I'm going to be planting Puerto Rican black beans and Chinese python snake bean. They are both vines, and so they need something to crawl up without shading everything else out in front. The next thing I'm going to plant is my crawler sprawler. This is watermelon. Now I do advise typically if it's an icebox melon, like a smaller melon, to climb up a trellis or an arbor or something like that. It helps with airflow and it reduces your likelihood of powdery mildew. But this one is a large melon. It is strawberry watermelon. And these things can get up to 20 pounds. So not the easiest to support on a trellis, which is why I'm going to allow it to go across the ground. So the next one that I wanted to plant is a second round of tomatoes because you can't really have enough tomatoes. But in this late of the season, I highly recommend going with an Everglades type tomato. I have one Everglades, which is the red, and then I also have one that's Coyote, which is the same current tomato, but yellow. These are the only ones that are going to produce all the way into summer months, and they're incredibly prolific. But they're not upright like a lot of other tomatoes. They kind of mound and sprawl out. So I'm planting these in front of the trellis next to my watermelon so that everything has access to light. Our next crop that I want to put into the raised bed is Egyptian spinach. Now this one I am going to plant from seed, and that is on purpose because I want time for the beans and the snake bean to start growing and getting access to that light, because eventually this does become a 3 to maybe 4 foot tall shrubby plant. And so if I were to put it in and it grows quicker than the bean seeds, it could potentially shade out what's behind it. But once they're tall enough, they'll be able to take care of their own. So I'm going to go ahead and put my Egyptian spinach right in the middle of the bed. So this is a seasoning pepper. I do have an entire video that discusses why I choose these over your traditional bell peppers. I'll have a link down in the show notes for that. But that being said, even though these peppers are really well adapted to growing here in Florida and they're not nematode sensitive and all that good stuff, peppers are kind of wimps, and they tend to need a little bit more water and a little bit more shade than the other nightshades. So I am planting it on the east side of the bed, so it's getting more morning light. And as this fills in and grows up, especially the Egyptian spinach, it's going to offer a little bit of shade and protection for this pepper plant. Last but not least, my lowest growing plants, culantro and marigolds. I'm going to sprinkle these in and around the tomatoes and peppers so that as things fill in, eventually this entire bed and all of the soil will be covered by something living. If you've got a wee bit of raised bed garden envy and you want to upgrade your beds to these Hopkins Hidden Homestead beds, I will have this video next on how I did it and why.